Mike, welcome back. Thanks for being here again.
Thanks for having me again.
Well, I would love in this conversation to really deep dive into indoor air quality and ways that we can all improve the air quality within our home. Because I know I had a podcast guest on before who, like in our first episode, explained we breathe much more than we eat or drink, but we don't often think as much about the quality of our air. And he explained that as we're breathing constantly, nanoparticulate from the air can actually accumulate in our bodies and lead to all kinds of dysfunction. And I've written before about how indoor air is often much more polluted than outdoor air, despite the common misconception that indoor air is cleaner. And I know
hmm
there's a lot of reasons for that. So I would love if we could start broad and you kind of walk us through what are the reasons that indoor air can be more polluted than outdoor air.
Yeah, absolutely. And like just broadly, bad air or just air in general is kind of like food and water. So it's a stressor and it causes a lot of inflammation. Um, in fact, there was a study very recently that took place over about a year in the UK. BBC just did a big feature on it that showed humans breathe about one credit card per week of microplastics each week. So they tested almost 100 homes for air and for basically they took dust samples and 100% of homes tested positive for microplastics, 98% of all samples. And then they started doing, when there was biopsies done, they worked with labs and stuff to test lung tissue and showed that how much microplastics were starting to embed deep in people's lungs, way deeper than they would have ever thought before. The um, health impacts are early and the studies are coming along, but microplastics in the lungs can't be a good thing. And there's more typically inside than outside, because outside we have the UV light from the sun and we have the wind to act as the world's best air purifier is nature. It is trees, it is sun, it is wind. And when we have our little tight homes, we've left the nature outside. So not only do we have all these indoor harmful particulate, but we've left out the best natural air filter, which is nature itself. So um, yeah, so microplastics are a big one, and just broadly, it's like there's oxidative stress that we can get. Our skin. So there's a lot of studies that have now come out on beauty and on the accelerated aging from air quality, because those harmful particles can actually get into your pores. Our pores can absorb particles and expedite aging. So there's a lot more stuff. Just pretty much anything that you know about what bad food can do to you and bad water can do to you, air is just another way to get that all in your body. And broadly, I like to look at two overarching buckets. You have outdoor pollution and indoor pollution. So outdoor pollution it's mold, it's pollen, it's all the allergens, it's wildfire smoke, it's factories, it's restaurant, it's that neighbor across the street who's doing a bathroom renovation and they're cutting their tiles and their 2x4s. It could be the barbecue. And then indoor pollution is all the chemicals you're using, paint, VOCs, off-gassing from your furniture. Cooking particulate is big, big, big. Pet dander is also really big. Cat litter, huge. So there's the indoor pollution and the outdoor pollution, and then the indoor air is a double whammy because you have both sources of pollutants, only this time they're trapped inside, and usually people have no air filtration. So where water, the convenient thing about water is, we have natural, like the groundwater or the pond or the lake, whatever your water source is usually heavily contaminated by like E. coli and bacteria and all kinds of stuff. And then the cities add a ton of chlorine and chemicals to make it safe, aka it won't kill you today. And then ideally, as that water enters your home, it comes in through a single pipe. So it's crazy process. It's like the water starts good, then it gets contaminated, then the city makes it safe by adding chemicals. Then we filter it all out, and then sometimes we even remineralize it. But the convenient thing about water is because it comes in through one pipe, it's just a single source. So it's very easy to just add a filter, a whole home filter, and be able to filter all the water that comes in your home. Or you could filter it at the shower head level or at the tap level. But you have a lot of ability to filter it because it just comes in through one pipe. Air is a lot sneakier. Air comes in through your windows, your doors, your vents, your cracks, your attic, your crawl spaces. There's not one singular source of where the air enters your home. So that is why with air, you can't just put one air filter in your furnace and expect that to capture all your air. You really need more of a decentralized solution. But yeah, those are kind of the two big buckets of air pollutants.
Oh, and I love that you defined just being outdoors. It's like that's nature's air filter and all the benefits. I mean, we know them from the human level of the UV and the fresh air outside. And there have been studies about camping and gardening being phenomenal for health. And I think it just speaks to we were meant to spend a lot more time outdoors as humans than we currently do. But I love that. And you talked in the first episode about sort of the ventilation problems in homes to begin with and how that now can compound because it's not ventilated, outdoor air can get in, all those indoor particulate can build up. Um, and I would say, like, can we go into why, how it seems like at least if our food is spoiled, for instance, we might smell that it's off. We might have instincts not to eat it. Same with probably at least really polluted water. But it seems like we maybe don't have those same sensors related to air quality.
Mhm.
And can you explain why that is? Or it sounds like you've developed that to some degree through your work. But why don't we seem to have the same ability to sense what's going on in the air?
So first and foremost, how crazy is it that the word out, when did they even invent the word outdoors or outside? We literally say we need to go outside. Isn't that just like Earth? That's the regular place. It was probably more flipped for the longest time. It would be like, I'm gonna go under my shelter to sleep or to cook. That's how the house began. It was a roof over our head, has a place to cook, keep the animals out, keep the elements out, keep the wind out. And now we talk about going outside or getting nature. That just shows how disconnected we are as a society, that we spend all of our time in these little artificial spaces that we've created, that we literally have a word for Earth and we call it outside. So, first of all, that word still absolutely boggles my mind. And now that not only do we go inside, but we literally cook indoors. I can't imagine we've been doing that for very long either. Um, so, my thought process on why we are so, why do we, with water, it tastes a little bit funky. Growing up as a kid, we would drink water from the hose all the time. Thinking back, tasted kind of plasticky. It didn't taste great. Didn't really think about it being harmful. I just thought, the hose tastes a little funny. But there was just water. Like you didn't really think twice about tap water. You go to a restaurant, you just get water. And then when you discover filtered water and you go back to tap water, you're like, oh, that water tastes funky. I don't know about that water. It tastes plasticky or it tastes chemically or it tastes whatever lake water tastes like. I don't have a good word for that. But like there's a taste associated with lake water. And it's very binary. I'm not drinking water and then I'm drinking water and I notice the difference. With food, I'm not eating food. I eat the food, I taste the food, then I'm not eating food. With air, because we're breathing it 24 hours a day, our bodies are so good at adapting and adjusting to discomfort and suboptimal conditions. It's like if you go into someone's house that smells a little bit funky, you go in there like, within 10 minutes, you forgot that it smelled because your body adapts so quickly where you're used to it, That's the best word. You get used to it so quickly because you've been breathing since the moment you were born and you'll breathe until the moment you die because once you stop breathing, it's game over. So because of that is why I believe we are so oblivious to the air. It's like what water is to fish, air is to people. And I saw this great little cartoon on YouTube, and there's this older fish swimming by these two younger fish in a fish bowl, and the older fish swims by and he goes, "How's the water, boys?" And then the little fish looked back at him and said, "What's water?" And like until modern science, I bet you we didn't even know what air was. We're just in it. So because we exist in it, imagine from the perspective of the fish what air is. It'd be like this thing that it's just like it's flipped. So water and air are very, very similar. Just us mammals live in air and fish live in water. And I think just because of that, we imagine how annoying it would be if the bad smell stayed bad. It'd be terribly uncomfortable. Um, Getting into the biosensors, I absolutely love nerding out about this. If you think of like we have biosensors, we have sensors built into our body, people just forget them and neglect them. For example, if you go outside right now, don't check your phone, you could probably guess within a few degrees what the temperature is. You know what 50 degrees feels like, you know what 90 degrees feels like, you know what 30 feels like. Within 5 or 6 degrees for sure, you have some general sense of what the temperature is. That's because your skin has a temperature sensor and you've calibrated it against the number on the screen, so we all can agree what 70 feels like and what 100 feels like. With relative humidity, if you go into the desert, it feels dry, or a dry sauna. If you go into the rainforest, it feels humid. Guess what? You also have a relative humidity sensor built into your skin. We have all kinds of sensors built in, which is why I can go into a home and detect mold or musty odors. Pretty much if you smell mold, I've never gone to an environment where I thought there was mold, tested and been wrong. Same thing with CO2. It's 910, by the way. We were at 800 when we started. It's not too bad though. My CO2, when someone feels stuffy or like I just need to go outside for a breath of fresh air, that's your body's way of saying this, I'm breathing too much carbon dioxide. Um, like we get fascinated by the bear who can smell, or the shark who can smell blood miles and miles away, just a drop of blood through the water currents or through the air currents if it's a bear. Well, humans have that ability too. Like if we took a pile of garbage and I put it in the corner of the bedroom and I blindfolded you, you could find the garbage just by smelling it, because literally we can smell through air currents too. We've just got quite removed from all of that. So the reason I like to talk about raising air awareness and raising air consciousness is once we are more aware of particulate, VOCs, chemicals, and CO2, we can do a lot to improve and optimize our environments because we can just listen to our bodies. Like if I go into a restaurant right away, I'm like, the CO2 is high, the particulate level's high, the VOCs feel high. I definitely want to sit outside because I can tell the air quality is poor. But temperature is sort of that first order of consequence. It's the one that feels least comfortable, probably because ancestrally we would freeze to death, or it's the one that will kill you the fastest. So we're the most attuned to the temperature. Whereas the VOCs, the particulate, the CO2 is a little bit more nuanced. So I think we're a little bit more detached from those senses.
That's so fascinating. I feel like you just explained the science of that phenomenon of going nose blind to like the scent in
Yes.
your own home, for instance. And I love this idea of biosensors and being able to sort of calibrate them and become more aware of them. I actually had a friend who did this. He was he would say he was terrible with direction, and he never, like, he wasn't good at taking directions, and he certainly didn't know which way was north or which way was south. And he put on a device that vibrated when he walked in a certain direction and did something else when he walked in another direction. And his body learned. And now he can tell you very accurately, like, that way's east, that way's west. He just has a sense
Mm,
for it. So it makes sense to me that we can become more attuned in our biosensors. Can you
mm.
also talk about, you mentioned air quality affecting aging, for instance, and oxidative damage. And I know from our conversations, it also can have a dramatic impact on things like performance and sleep. I know for a lot of the moms listening, sleep is a big topic. Can you speak to the impact it can have there and why?
Yo, the directional thing is so interesting. I always use the term head GPS. I never had a word for it before. That I don't know. I don't know if I told you this, but I didn't have a cell phone between 2017 and 2020. And I got excellent at memorizing numbers and navigating and getting around. I was talking with my wife Rachel the other day, and she's like, "I need GPS. I just don't have a good sense of direction." I'm like, "When I met you 14 years ago, you drove everywhere without a map. You used to have it. You just started to outsource your compass to the phone and to the navigation system in your car. And by outsourcing that to the technology, you've lost it, but you had that technology built in before." So I've talked to people who lived in Austin for years, and they don't know where anything is because they moved to the new city as an adult with GPS, and they just plug in the GPS. So I made sure when I moved to a new city, I never used GPS for at least for a long time. And if I'm looking somewhere up new, I like to check a map once and then figure it out. If I get lost, check again, and it just keeps that directional sense strong. And I'm glad you brought that up. I'm gonna see what I can do. I would really like to know which way's true north by not looking at my phone or a compass. So thank you for bringing that up. Um, what was your question?
How air quality especially can affect sleep or
Sleep,
performance. Yes.
sleep. Let's go deep on sleep. So sleep is probably the number one thing that when people buy Jaspers, sleep is number one and allergic symptoms are number two. So I love sleep. So I actually reframed the word sleep into healing time because I feel like sleep had this almost negative connotation. Like, I don't want to go to sleep and go dormant. I feel like I'm missing out on 1/3 of my life. But when I reframed it to healing time, it's like when you get sick, you always are like, hopefully I feel better tomorrow. Like all of the healing happens at night when we're sleeping. And then the next day you're like, I'm like incrementally less sick. I feel better. It's like and you feel worse at night usually when you're sick. It's because you've been awake so long and your body needs to do some healing. And this is the time when our like memories consolidate and our muscles repair and we recover. And most people have horrible air in their bedrooms. So it's a place where ideally we're spending 1/3 of our life. And with our the average bedroom, when we measure the particulate between there's about 800,000 particles in the average bedroom, ranging from 0.3 microns to 10 microns. A micron is 1/1000th of a millimeter. It's a teeny tiny little thing. And when we measure the air in most bedrooms, there's mold. There's usually more pollen. Speaking of more dirty air being dirtier inside than outside, not only is there all that indoor chemicals and stuff, there's more pollen typically inside than outside, in your carpets, in your bedding, in your clothing, in your furniture. So you lie down to sleep and you're breathing in hundreds of thousands of particles of not just your pets, but the whole community's pets, all the pets, all the car exhaust, all the cooking, all the construction, all your, if your neighbor's cooking seed oils and you're not, it's venting outside, it's coming in your home. We all share air. So it all comes inside, it gets into our indoor environments. So when you can, I like to call air sleep fuel, because at night, we're not eating food, we're not drinking water. Air is the only thing keeping us alive. So it's not just keeping us alive, but it's also aiding and supporting our recovery process. So you can imagine that being inside a clean air environment allows your body to do its natural recovery processes much better. So I've actually seen, and I'm so excited about this. I'm in Austin, where cedar fever and allergies are pretty bad. People talk about it here. And the amount of people whose seasonal allergies have gone from severe to non-existent in like a couple of weeks after putting Jaspers in their bedrooms is insane. And the reason that is because if there's bad air outside and even worse air inside and the worst air in your bedroom, well, your body doesn't really get a chance to recover. It's playing defense 24 hours a day. You're in your bedroom and you're still breathing all those toxins all night while you're sleeping. So your body has such a hard time of resting and recovering and rejuvenating because it's dealing with the mold, it's dealing with the chemicals, it's dealing with the pollen. So when you can have a really, I like to call it like my sleep sanctuary or my clean air sanctuary. When I have my bedroom super dialed in, I sleep so deeply. I've seen people's aura scores go from a 61 to a 91 instantly because now they're not breathing pollen and mold at night. So now it's not like the air is recovering you, but by not being in a toxic environment, your body can heal itself. And then by giving it a chance to rest and recover at night, you go out and about and you live your life during the day. And because you're not bombarded by allergies 24 hours a day, you get that chance to rest and recover. You're way more resilient. You can you can go into a sauna for half an hour or even an hour. But if you stayed in that sauna, you would die. You can't live in the sauna. So when you're living in a chronically poor air environment, it just beats you down. Your autoimmune, your allergies, your sleep, everything gets beat down. But when your house can be this clean air sanctuary, it shouldn't be 5 times dirtier, 8 times dirtier than the outdoor. It should be 10 times cleaner. It's the one environment where we actually can control it. So I like to flip this upside down. And by doing so, and by having a sleep sanctuary and resting and recovering, you sleep better, your energy's better, your performance is better, and people's allergic symptoms often completely go away.
That's amazing, and it makes sense. I say on here often that the body is wired to want to live in an optimal state to heal, and that even I try to reframe symptoms as gifts or messengers because they're simply telling us something our body either needs and doesn't have or has and doesn't need. And so we can get great information from that. But I love that you reframe that in like the body wants to heal. And if we're just bombarding it, we're making its job a lot harder. And I agree with you. I think sleep is such a core factor. And in all of the almost 800 podcasts I've done, I'm yet to have anybody claim sleep is not important. That seems like the universal thing that we can agree on. I think
Yes.
back to my college years when I used to say I can sleep when I die, and now realizing if we don't get quality sleep, that process can happen much more quickly because sleep is so incredibly important. And I also love this concept because I feel like anything we can do that is sort of an set it and forget it, effortless improval that helps sleep, especially, really has compounding benefits. And so over the years, for me, that's been getting the right temperature in my sleep environment, getting the lighting to completely pitch black at night,
Yes.
creating a space where I feel calm and parasympathetic. And I feel like air quality is now the next phase of that I've noticed a difference from. And I love that the Jasper gives you a number. I'm just curious on a personal level, what is a good number? Like what do we want to see on that number ideally for good indoor air quality?
So four is like 3 or 4 is like excellent. Anything under 10 is pretty good. Um, for example, like what do you know what yours is usually?
My bedroom's usually 3 right now, but I
Three is
know in the
great,
the kitchen one, if like the kids burn a steak or something, it'll be like 500.
right? And then the Jasper kicks up and does its thing.
Mhm.
So get this, in Beijing, the outdoor air would be about a 60 or a 70. That's the baseline, which is why the air quality, which is why air filtration is everywhere. When there's wildfire smoke at west, inside could be a 150. And people don't even know it because outside's a 250. So you get nose blind and you think your indoor environment's okay during the wildfire smoke, but it's not. Um, so 4 to 10 is good, but that's only one factor of thousands of factors of air. That's not measuring for mold. So like a Jasper can filter thousands of things, but it can only detect a couple of things, which is why it's a fair sized unit. I like to say that most little air purifiers are like golf carts. The industrial machines were like tractor trailers or pickup trucks, and the Jasper is like an SUV for the family. Like it can take your kids to school, take them to soccer practice, and look good while doing it. So it's kind of like fits that middle category. And so yeah, the number you want, your baseline number should be under a 10. Um, at nighttime, a lot of people actually prefer either they sleep with headphones in or white noise or something. I keep my Jasper on fan speed 2 or 3 with dark mode at night because I'd rather have cleaner air in my bedroom. So smart mode is great for the kitchen, for the living room, for something like that, where it's going to be detecting the cooking particles and stuff like that. But bedrooms, I usually love leaving them on fan speed 2 because they're more impactful at night. And then ideally, if the bedroom is in an area where you can't hear it during the day, I leave my bedroom ones on fan speed 2 24 hours a day because that way, even during the day, just because they're in the bedroom, they're still contributing to the clean air in the entire home. Um, so yeah, less than 10 is excellent. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't keep it to a higher level in the bedroom unless you like silence. If that's the case, you could totally keep it on fan speed 1.
That's a great tip. I'm going to start doing that. And just to your point, I love that there is a dark mode because I love having my bedroom so dark. And so it can run all night without blue light or any kind of like bright light that keeps me awake. And I also love that you, even as a business owner who has a very practical solution for air quality, I hear you so often just educating about things people can do that even if they don't have air filters. And so I would love to spend our remaining time on practical tips we can all implement in our homes to improve the air quality. Obviously, Jasper's on the list for my home, but what are some other things that we can do that can make a difference in the air we're breathing
Yeah,
constantly?
there's a lot of stuff that we could do. And to touch on that sleep mode, the reason I created that is I was before creating Jasper, I was a prosumer. I was buying every air purifier. I was reaping the rewards, and I had to have too many. I would need like 6 or 7 or 8 to like move the needle. I'm like, I don't want 10 of these things all over the place with their bright lights and their fans. Um, and most air purifiers have a sleep mode to turn off the light, but when you push that sleep mode, it turns the fan speed down to 5%. So I like to joke the only thing that you're putting to sleep at night is the air purifier. I like to sleep with mine. I like a bit of white noise, not from a speaker, but from a fan with no EMF. That's why we did no Wi-Fi and no Bluetooth. Um, and yeah, so that was the intention of the sleep the dark mode, so you could have it on any fan speed you want, but still have the light off. Um, and yeah, so in terms of little tips and tricks that you can do at home. So some of the things are source based. So I'm sure you've talked about a lot. Companies like Branch Basics and just having like better low tox products, easy win. Using your range hood, not just when you cook bacon, but when you cook anything, keeping your range hood on, at least fan speed one. If you can use the back burner to, you have like a pot on, the range hood's going to capture things from the back burner a lot better than the front burner. Another thing is the Kleenex test. So take a Kleenex or a tissue, try it on your bathroom, try it on your bathroom vent in your range hood. Make sure those fans are actually working. Half the time, people's range hoods and bathroom fans are not working at all. Another thing you can do is switch your humidifier switch. Well, when you're done having a shower, you should leave the fan running for a couple of hours, because it's all the humidity from the towel and from the shower that accumulates to a lot of humidity and mold growth in homes. So you can actually get those little switches on the bathroom that allow it to run for like 2 hours. So when I'm done my shower, I hit the 2 hour button actually before, so it's on a 2 hour timer to really get a lot of the humidity out. If you have a cat, look for a pellet-based litter, because a lot of those toxic clumping litters are super, super toxic. If you have a dog, grooming your dog, brushing them more than you think you should, because your dog goes out into the wild, it gets glyphosate from the grass, it gets all the pollen, it gets all the outdoor allergens, comes inside, rubs on your bed. So dogs can be a really big impact for air quality. So keeping them groomed. And then when you're cooking, if the climate permits, opening windows when you cook is just a no-brainer. And if you're hosting a lot of people and the CO2 is up and you're having like a party or a bunch of people over, cracking doors, cracking windows, or when they leave, open up all the doors to purge the CO2. Those are a few easy wins that you could get.
That's a great list. And I had the Branch Basics founders on this podcast, and they explained how even having the really toxic cleaning products in your home, even if you're not using them,
Oh
can
yeah, big
contribute
time.
to the air quality. So I feel like that's a good reason to just get them
Or your
out of your home
garage
or
with
garage.
all the chemicals in your garage. Every time you open that garage door, they come in.
Oh, that's a
Um,
great point. Yeah.
that's a big one. Um, yeah, so those are the most obvious tips that I would definitely recommend. And yeah, so yeah, those are the big ones.
Awesome. And I know that you have a special offer just for Jasper for this week only. So can you explain that? And I'll make sure it's linked in the show notes as well.
I can. And one other detail I wanted to point out to you that was really important when we were building Jasper, that's like super important. I think it's not just the Jasper thing, that's something that people should consider with lots of products, is we made it out of steel, not plastic. And that's because with plastic, when you produce a plastic product, for every ton of plastic created, it's 3 tons of CO2. So when you're creating this thing that's cleaning your indoor air, you're polluting the environment like crazy. And then the purifier itself only lasts a few years. When you make it out of steel, it's infinitely recyclable, which is, by the way, why we have the lifetime warranty. So if anybody's Jasper ever breaks, we ship them a new one the next day. You take the new one out of the box, you put the old one in the box. We give them a prepaid shipping label, and we schedule a UPS to pick it up the next day at 9 a.m. because I hate as a customer having to jump through hoops for warranties. And because we made it out of steel, we take it back, we clean it up, we refurbish them, and then we actually give them to local schools and daycares and businesses. We don't use refurbished units for customers. So the lifetime warranty and the steel construction is something I'm very, very proud of. So yeah, that code, wellness, the code is Wellness Mama. As I mentioned on episode 2, we'll do the same thing for this episode. So we'll extend it for this week as well. So the day that this episode comes out, the code Wellness Mama is $200 off. And then after the first week, it'll drop down to a $100 discount. And we have a little something called the life-changing guarantee. So if within the first 60 days, it's not, forget about third-party studies and how you thinking it works. If you don't, this is my favorite feedback is when people say, this is the first air purifier I know works. I feel it working. I don't just wonder if that little white box is doing something, but you'll know it's working. And if you don't, we give you 100% of your money back, because if we want customers for life who are making a difference in your life. And if Jasper's not the thing that's doing it, find something else that is. So we like to put our money where our mouth is. So $200 off starting today. And then after 1 week, it'll drop down to $100 off. And that code is Wellness Mama.
I love that. And that struck me so much when I met you. It's just how passionate you are about this topic and educating, even if no one buys a Jasper, but also how much you go to like the end of the earth to really like make sure you've made an amazing product and that you guarantee it, that people are feeling a difference and that the customer experience is positive all the way through. I feel like that's rare in today's world. And I just appreciate that so much and that you are willing to spend time to educate and help improve air quality for all the families listening. So, Mike, it's always a joy to talk to you. Thank you so much for the time and for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you, as always, for listening and sharing your most valuable resources, your time, your energy, and your attention with us today. We're both so grateful that you did. And I hope that you will join me again on the next episode of the Wellness Mama podcast.